Well, it's been a very cold couple of days, last couple of days of October, heading into November here in Boise, Idaho. But hey, you know what? Fall, I love it, but it eventually has to turn into winter. So it looks like we're almost here. But without further ado, I want to dive into the cost of waiting analysis I promised you in last week's video. So this week, I talked last week about it, the affordability crisis and affordability of homes, and if homes really are as unaffordable as everybody says, they are definitely less affordable, much less affordable than they were a number of years ago. But they're not quite as unaffordable as some news articles in the media spin it, because those articles tend to not focus as much on the wage increases and take into account other factors that make home affordability a little, maybe at least a little bit better than what we might expect. But having said that, definitely less affordable now. There's no doubt about that. I want to dive in today on kind of a follow-up to that, the cost of waiting. Is there a cost of waiting, right? I have a lot of clients I speak with that are saying, hey, I'm just gonna wait. I think prices are gonna dip 5 or 10% this winter, and interest rates are gonna come down next year or the year after, and at that point I'll consider buying. But right now I'm not going to, even though I need a house right now because my rent is way more expensive than I want to pay for the square footage I'm in. And I know I'm financially ready, and I know I'm going to be in the home for at least 4 or 5 years or longer. I still don't think it's a good idea. So what I've done is I've put together some information here with the help of my advisory firm, MBS Highway, and a tool that they offer that allows you to clearly see if you're in that situation. You're trying to figure out if you want to buy or not, and if now's the right time, or if you want to wait for rates to drop or prices to dip. I've put together some numbers with their tool that really shows clearly the results of that, and kind of what to consider. So let's start with this chart here that you see in front of you. This is from a firm called Altos Research, and they focus city by city across the country, kind of what's happening with housing. This shows the median list price over the past week or so. It's about last week, but very similar this week. So it shows one of the reasons why people are thinking of waiting. They're looking at this going, well, I'm seeing the median price of homes fall a little bit this fall, drop a little bit this fall, to use the right word there. And what if it continues to drop, right? And so we don't know if it'll continue to drop or not. But let's take these charts at face value and say, okay, fine. Let's say prices continue to drop 5, even 10% over the winter because of a lack of demand, right? There's still a lack of supply. There's still low inventory, but with interest rates inching up as high as they are, it is causing a lot of would-be buyers to do a double take and say, well, maybe I'll wait. And so now there's less demand than there was during the summer. So if demand continues to shrink faster than supply shrinks, we could see prices continue to fall. So I'm just going to give them that, right? Let's say fine. Let's say prices fall. So this is the meridian chart. You can see prices have dipped a little bit over the last couple of months since summer. And this is Boise, same thing. It's kind of come off the crest of the midsummer to late summer, coming down a little bit now. So I'm going to give them that. Let's say prices come down 5 to 10% over the winter. Okay. And so I put together these numbers here that you can see. Hopefully you can see this. If you're on your phone, you might want to blow this up on a bigger screen and get to a laptop or something. But here's what I put together. I've said, okay, if we have a $500,000 home, because that's typically, your $400,000 to $500,000 range is, at least in this area, is fairly normal for a first-time home buyer, or maybe a move-up buyer, the second home that they buy. So I used $500,000 for a home. I used a loan amount of $479. So I'm using a FHA loan here because that's a typical first-time home buyer loan. It's a decent loan, it's 3.5% down. The bad thing about FHA is it has this mortgage insurance component that you can never get rid of. So I don't recommend this product over conventional. I think conventional is a far better product because you can get rid of mortgage insurance over time. But a lot of people do gravitate to FHA because they don't have as much down payment, or maybe their debt ratio is a little bit higher, or their credit scores are a little bit lower. So yeah, it is helpful, right, to some people to get into a home. So let's say you would do that. Let's say we're a first-time home buyer. We're using an FHA loan as a 30-year fixed mortgage, hypothetical interest rate of 7.5, with 1.5 points, which would put your APR at about 8.3. A 30-year term, so your loan amount's $479, it's fixed for 30 years. I've got some mortgage insurance in there, $220. Okay, let's say this is your loan if you're to buy a house now. as opposed to waiting 6 months. So let's say you wait 6 months and home values drop 10%. So I'm using some conservative numbers. Instead of a $500,000 house, now it's only a $450,000 house next March or April, right? And I'm not saying that's going to happen. It might not happen. In fact, it's a good possibility it won't happen. But there's also a good possibility it will happen, that we'll have softer prices. So you just never know. So I'm going to go conservative. Let's say it does happen. There's a 10% lower price next year. Same thing, same rate, same everything else, right? Everything else is the same except you have a lower loan amount, which gives you a slightly lower payment. Okay, next scenario. Let's say you wait 1 year, and let's say prices come back up a little bit, right? They dropped into spring, and then we have a fairly robust spring and summer into next fall, and they've come back up about 4%. So we're back to about a 480 purchase price. And let's say at the same time rates drop a bit. Let's say they drop a solid 0.5%. So we're down to 7% this time next year. Okay, that's what this scenario is. Then I did another scenario, waiting 2 years. Let's say we wait 2 years. We see prices rise at the average appreciation rate in this area, which is 4 to 5% per year. And let's say they rise about that 4%. So we're about 505 on the purchase price if you wait 2 years. So just a little bit more expensive than right now. And rates are a full percent lower at 6.5% instead of 7.5%. Sounds pretty good. Wait 3 years. Let's say they rise again because home appreciation in this area tends to be in that 4 to 5% annual appreciation per year. Say it rises again, we're at 530, but rates drop hard. Let's say 3 years from now, they've dropped 2%. We're down to 4.5% on the rate. Same thing 4 years. 4 years will say, okay, another 4 to 5% appreciation. You're at 560 for the purchase price, but rates are still really low, 4.5%. Let's say you wait 5 years, rates are still low, still in those mid fours. But the price, of course, has appreciated. So now your home is 585. You're pushing a $600,000 home 5 years from now instead of 500,000 now. So those are my assumptions. I hope you can agree with me that those are fairly conservative assumptions, right? I'm assuming prices are going to drop 10% over this winter. I'm assuming rates are going to drop over the next 2 years, 3 years, down into the mid fours, which is possible, but probably unlikely. It's probably more likely it's going to be somewhere in the fives on the low end, but you never know. We'll see what happens. So these are my assumptions, okay? So you can see in this chart, you have appreciation, drop off, and then kind of come back. And then payments over time, of course, start out high, lower because of the lower interest rate. So that's that chart. So take a look at this one. This is your total cost of waiting. So if you were to wait 6 months to buy, that'd be a good idea. Be a good idea if you plan to not be in the home very long, right? And you plan to be selling it within the next year or two, probably a good idea to wait 6 months just in case home prices fall. Honestly, I mean, I would if I were in your shoes, because otherwise, if you bought now and then sold in 6 months, you would have lost $47,000, almost $48,000. This chart shows the combination of the amortization benefit and appreciation benefit. So amortization meaning how much of your loan you're paying off, right? Because amortization means the bank gets paid first. The largest portion of your payment every month goes to the bank to pay for the interest during the first half of the loan. That gradually by the midpoint of a loan, you're paying 50% to the bank in interest and 50% to yourself in principal pay down. So this is assuming that you're losing out on some of that amortization gain of paying down the balance. So after 1 year, you're still in the hole, almost $16,000. After 2 years, you've made money, right? Assuming that home prices have now come back up, right? A little bit, that 5% after the 10% dip that first 6 months. So you made 14 grand as a combination of amortization and appreciation. Okay. This is saying you would have lost that if you'd not bought now. Okay. These first two are saying you would have gained 47,000 if you don't buy right now, but you sold 6 months from now, or if you don't buy right now, but you sold a year from now. It would have been a good idea to not buy, right? If you're going to be out of it in a year. But if you're going to be out of it in 2 years, you actually would have had a little bit of gain. 3 years, even more. So if you don't buy now and wait 3 years, it's going to cost you $44,000. If you don't buy now and wait 4 years, it costs you about $60,000. Combination of appreciation lost and amortization. And if you wait 5 years, it's going to cost you about $85,000 in wealth that you would have had by owning a home with a normal appreciation. So pretty interesting, isn't it? It automatically you think, man, prices drop 10% and rates drop 3%. I'm automatically better off. Only if you sell within that first year, maybe two, right? If you don't and you hold on to it, you will have been better off to buy now at the higher interest rates and the higher prices than waiting 3 years. So very interesting information. It just helps. I like this because it helps put kind of the emotional aspect of buying a home in perspective with the financial aspect, and kind of gives you permission to buy, right? Everybody wants permission to buy, but they don't want to do something stupid. I don't blame you. Nobody wants to do something dumb. So this gives you permission. You say, okay, I know I'm going to be there 5 years or longer. I'm financially prepared. I've got stable income, stable employment. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go ahead and buy this home because I know over the long term, even though there may be a dip in rates coming up and a dip in prices over the winter, I'm still going to be better off, and I need a place to live anyway. So that's who I'm speaking to. If that's you, then we should talk, right? It's time to move forward. In fact, this time of year generally is a very good time of year to purchase because most people aren't thinking about buying after about November 15th. They're focused on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So you've got a window coming up here of the holidays where there's much less competition out there for homes. If you couple that with, for example, with Summit's $10,000 underwriting guarantee, which is a way to really put the help you win the deal. So we do an actual commitment where we totally approve your file through underwriting, which you have to do anyway at some point. And then we issue from our underwriting department an actual certificate that says you're fully approved. But if Summit were to have missed something for some reason in underwriting, which we never do, but if we were to, then we would pay the seller either $10,000 cash or buy their home at list price for the trouble. So it helps you really compete with cash offers, et cetera. So if you use that in combination with the timing of buying during the holidays with fewer buyers and a little bit more inventory that's typically out there, what a great time to buy, especially if you're going to be there long term. So that's what I want to share here with the cost of waiting. This is, again, net gain, home buying versus renting. And I can show you this in more detail if you're interested in that and saying, hey, what if I just rent? This shows if your rent was $1,000 a month less than your new mortgage payment. In fact, this case is more like $1,500 a month less. Would it make sense, right? And it does after 6 years in this case. Even if you have a $1,500 lower rent payment, after 6 years, you will be better off financially by owning a home, even though it would cost you $122,000 more in monthly payments. So if you can afford the higher mortgage payment, even though it's a little tighter on your budget, but you know you're going to be there long term over 6 years, it still makes sense to buy versus rent. And this is a very conservative, scenario I put together here, saying, okay, this person's got $1,500 cheaper rent payment than mortgage. Long term, it still makes more sense to purchase just based on the average 4 to 4% range appreciation rate of homes here in the Boise Meridian area and most of the country. Okay, so that's that. I'm not going to go into this next slide, but I do want to show what's happening in the markets. So let's take a look at the markets real quick today. The mortgage-backed security market bond today is a little bit weak. We bounced Friday and Thursday off of these lows and the prices. We've kind of been hanging in here though and have not been able to breach this Fibonacci ceiling. So things are still kind of just hanging in there in this lowest range that we've seen all year, hoping we get some breakout above that. There's going to be a lot of data this week with regards to the jobs report towards the end of the week, and other data throughout the week that's going to be very interesting. In fact, even the Bank of Japan has some data coming out later tonight where they're going to decide whether their 10-year bond equivalent, whether they're going to allow that to free float and remove the ceiling that they have over there on that yield. So that'll be interesting. That could be a market mover by tomorrow morning. So there's going to be a lot of things that move the markets, and we hope moves it in the right direction. If there is a weak labor report, fewer jobs than expected on Friday on the BLS report, that will have an improvement effect on mortgage rates as well. So stay tuned. I'll keep you in the loop by next Monday on what's happening, but I hope this cost of waiting analysis was helpful to you, especially if you or someone is in this dilemma and trying to sort this out and think through logically and emotionally what to do right now, whether it's a good time to buy or not. I hope that helps you. If you'd like specific numbers for you, customized to you on a cost of waiting analysis, please let me know. Reach out to me and I'll put one together just for you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.